In the newest example of the culture wars, Florida is now doing menstruation checks on student athletes to make sure that they are not transgender or pregnant. Now, this is according to a report in Fortune magazine. Before that they're allowed to take the field, female students in Florida are now being asked if they've had their periods and when they've had their periods, the last period they've had, and the frequency of their periods. Great. Now, look, here's the thing. Has that question been asked before of female athletes? Yeah, sure. Usually they ask that when it comes to physicals, right? And usually that information has been kept very private. In this case, it is not being kept private, and I'll explain why. So now the state, turns out, had changed the way that the answers of those questions about their menstrual cycles are collected and stored, and have even added a corporate third party. Now that's very important. So now this fall, districts including Palm Beach, Broward, Hillsborough, and Sarasota counties are going to switch to a digital platform called Activate, which was founded by former AOL CEO and News Corp executive John Miller. That company, which is not a medical care provider, is not protected by HIPAA laws, meaning that the information that they collect and store is not private protected information, even though it should be. That company could be forced to turn over all of that personal private data to the state if the state has a subpoena. Obviously, that is very disturbing when it comes to this personal private data. Now, how that's relevant, look, states all over the country since the end of Roe have been introducing and passing more and more extreme abortion restrictions, right? So this information could possibly be used for that. They're also working on, by the way, banning gender-affirming healthcare for transgender teens. Meaning, of course, again, this data could be used to out trans kids who want to compete in sports, or as well as teenagers who could be pregnant or have gotten an abortion. They could notice the gaps in menstrual data, which, by the way, I mean, that's not even indicative of anything. There are women who have irregular periods all the time. There are plenty of different, conditions, things that can happen to make, your periods rather irregular. Now, if you're an idiot and you don't know any of that, or by the way, I'll take that back. You don't have to be an idiot not to understand that. You could just not understand female anatomy or physiology or anything like that and just not have this knowledge. You'd be ignorant of it. You don't know this. And if you're working for the state of Florida, you might look at that and say, ooh, there's a noticeable gap between when this, and by the way, this is an entire creepy conversation to even happen. It's just wrong, right? But under this, there are people that now are working for the state that have access to this data that are being charged with hunting down girls that they may believe have had an abortion. So they see this gap and they think, oh, it looks like we need to investigate this person. Now we need to investigate this person to make sure that they didn't have an illegal abortion. This teenage girl, this 16-year-old, 17-year-old, or younger. I mean, it's incredibly gross. What are we doing? What are you doing, Florida? What the hell is wrong with you? Now, let's also talk about, again, how this feels like an entirely new, worse form of invasion of privacy. As I said before, these questions are asked in physicals to ensure that that the students can participate in sports and are generally kept very private. The only page of this information is shared with the district is whether or not the doctor actually clears you to play in sports. No other medical information, such as your menstrual cycles, are generally shared, except in Florida, where they have made sure that all of the medical data is turned over to the school. So we're just going to turn over all your personal medical data to the school to ensure that you're not a transgender, basically. And at least one district keeps the entire full submitted medical packet for 7 years. So even after you graduate, they have that information, your personal information, on file. Disgusting. That is not your information to keep. This is private privileged medical information that the state, by the way, can now be used or can now use against women, both cisgender and transgender women. If anybody who doesn't see that this is a war on women, you're blind. You're not seeing it. Why does the Florida government need to know about the period of a teenage girl? Why? Why is it that a state that says that believes so much in freedom and hate big government getting into your personal lives, right? Why is that same government trying to insert themselves almost literally into the most private areas of a woman's life? Just so they can what? Do their culture war against the transgenders? And as a bonus, maybe punish some women for getting abortions? It's disgusting. It's sick. Get out of their lives. These are kids. These are teenage girls. Why do you need to know this personal information? Get out. God, get out of their pants. What is wrong with you? Everybody in Florida that's supporting this, Ron DeSantis, Florida government, conservatives, what the hell is wrong with you people? My God. What's next? Genital checks? Probably. Look, understand that this is what right-wing rule leads to. This is the right-wing surveillance state. It's all turning into Handmaid's Tale. And so look, if you're a woman living in Florida or any of these states that have such draconian restrictions against your own bodily autonomy, that's horrifying. That's what the right wing has done. It's absolutely horrible in this point to be a woman in Florida in these states. And I can't imagine it getting any better before it gets worse. Well, you got to stop the right wing and not vote for these horrible perverts that are trying to get in, and to learn about your personal information.